It's time to stand up and get going. Here we go. So next project, we are working on, we're working on the lights on the 4Runner. I have a light bar on the top of the 4Runner, and I have 2 lights on the back of the 4Runner, and they have stopped working, and I'm not sure why. So we're gonna go see if we can figure that out. Some of you might ask, why do I need that kind of a lighting on my rig? I go off-road, and when I go off-road, I will frequently wander around in the middle of the night so that I can see more things like the stars and animals. And it's amazing the difference of what you see during the day and the difference of what you see in the evening. And it's very cool. With that though, there's certain safety precautions that you want to take, and having better lighting is a good thing to have because there are no lights out there. There's no street lights, there's none of that. And sometimes you can go through heavily forested areas, and there, even if the stars and the moon are out, it is so heavily canopied that it's just super, like you can't even turn around on these roads. You can only go in one direction, and it's tight on both sides. So this can be very helpful. I noticed that the lights were starting to have some problems when I was out in Yellowstone last year. And I was noticing, and I thought it was just kind of quirky at first, because the lights would be on. I couldn't turn them off unless I turned the vehicle off. And then when I restarted, then it was fine. The lights were off, and then I could turn that back on. Just one way though. So the last time I had them on, I was coming up, I was in Yellowstone, coming up some mountains, and I was just kind of goofing around, and I was playing with the lights because I was just kind of meandering at that point, and it was, I'm going to say it was probably about 11 o'clock. Yeah, I would say it was probably about 11 o'clock or so, and there's nobody around, very quiet, and I was aware that there was a meteor shower that was happening around that time, but for some reason I didn't really, I hadn't settled, I hadn't found my spot yet. I was just wandering, so I was more curious about the animals that were around Yellowstone than I was anything else. So anywho, I wasn't stargazing at that point, just meandering, and I came up, I had the lights on because I was sitting there flicking them off, flicking them on, this sort of thing. And I had just started playing with them and moving really slowly, and come up around a corner, and my light bar's on, my headlights are on. I'm 10,000 suns at that point. And I come up around this corner, and all of a sudden I have a whole line of tail lights that are lit up, because of course I'm the one that's lighting them up. And yes, I was the asshole. So I come up around the corner, I see all of these headlights, and I'm like, oh, shit. So I stop the rig, I turn it off, the lights go out. I just put my parking lights on, side lights, so there's no white light at all, and it's light enough out where I can kind of see the road. And I start the rig back up, and I move forward. I'm not that far away because it was just kind of a corner, and then everybody was right there. And there's probably 5 or 6 cars, and they all have their telescopes out. Yes. They're big fancy ones with the cameras connected to them. Of course, because why wouldn't it be? So I roll my window down, and I was very apologetic. I was like, I am so sorry. I was just playing with my lights because they've been acting goofy, and yeah, I couldn't get them to turn off, and they just kind of laughed and we laughed and all of that, and I just kept wandering. Yeah, that was, of course that would happen. So anywho, needless to say, these are really good lights to have. Animals, and just being able to see the road more clearly, as you can see by some of the critters that are running around here. So these are bison. Yellowstone has bison. They're not buffalo. And they can be anywhere from about 800 pounds to about 2,200 pounds. And the 4Runner is about 6,000 pounds. So you can kind of understand why you really want to, you know, and there's elk and those sorts of things. In a lot of the areas that I like to go meander around, and elk and bears, and although honestly never really see any bears in my entire time of wandering around backpacking, everything else, I have only seen bears once, and that was mama bear and her little cub. It was in Oregon, and that was in the 90s. So just saying. Not that you don't ignore that there's bears out there. Be cautious. Anywho, so on with this. So that was the last time I worked with the light bar and the lights in the back. So now we're going to go through and we're going to see if we can't figure this out. So I'm not going to get into too much detail about the system that is in my vehicle. This is, I'm going to sit here and read this because it's a Trigger 4 Plus, and it's a wireless unit, meaning that you can access this through an app. You can also you can see the 1, 2, 3, 4 little buttons that are numbered on here, and with that, if you push one of those buttons, it will light up the green and reds. There's actually little lights just below the fuses, so it lets you know whether or not the fuse is working or if it's not working. So you can manually do it here. Now the vehicle has to be on in order for these lights to work, so if it's off, nothing's going to happen. So they do take a bit of energy, and you don't want to run your battery dead. So that's their safeguard. So you can run it by an app. You can run it. There are buttons on the console in the vehicle. Like I said, I'm not going to get into too much detail with this because this is an older unit that's in here. And they have upgraded ones. I like this system. I do like this system. So app, the remote that's in the car, and the buttons. So I did go through and did some troubleshooting with this. I will say originally I did not. And I don't like electrical. I worked in construction for decades. And I have been close enough to really bright blue flashes of light that have scared the shit out of me. And so I don't like electrical, and somebody else can take care of that stuff. However, I went through and I went over and was getting the oil changed, checking on tires, this kind of stuff for the trip. And I had inquired about, being able to troubleshoot these because it just kind of seemed like something had gotten loose or whatever. And Toyota didn't really want to work with it. It's not their thing because it's not their lights. They don't sell those, this sort of thing. Tire company, of course, no, that's not going to happen. So it's a specialty thing. And so I went over and went to a couple specialty shops. Super busy at the time that I went over, and they wanted $300 to $500 just to look at it. So regardless of whether or not they discovered what was wrong with it or even fixed it, it was going to be $300 to $500 and wouldn't even narrow it down from there. And it was also going to take days to get it in. I was not amused because I have this little thing about me where if I don't think I'm getting value for something, I just really... So I decided I was going to go over and YouTube University this. And so that's exactly what I did. And you know, I can do a lot of things. I just don't like doing electrical. I really don't. Really don't. So, but $300 to $500, and not even a guarantee that it's going to be fixed or they're even going to find the issue. I can do that for free. So, so that's what I did. So I went over, I did a little bit of research. So I did go through, and I did go through the process of making sure that the unit worked. I didn't know that there was an app at first until I started digging into the YouTube University. And so I was able to go through and cross-check, because I didn't even know about the push buttons on the unit even. So I definitely learned a few things with this whole process, which is, you know, kind of the thing. You learn as you go, right? That is life. The transitions of life. I have gone from not knowing anything about this to being able to troubleshoot this. So, with some help, we're going to get to that. So, so the buttons were working, the fuses looked good, nothing was red on the board that we kind of just got done talking about. I was able to turn the unit off and on with the remote. Didn't realize that when I was up in Yellowstone. Nope, because I didn't dig into it yet. So, and then I was able to turn it off and on using the app as well. So, system looks good. So I checked a couple of other fuses. There's a fuse box that sits below this unit. And so I was able to get in there because there is a wire that goes directly to the battery power. There is the ground, blue, off to the side, and we kind of looked at that. And then there's the yellow that goes into the fuse box. So tracking down the fuse box, I did go through, I checked the fuses, put them exactly back where they belong because that proves to be a problem later on. But I put them back, everything's good. Fuses are good. So I know at that point that it's a problem from the box to the lights. Someplace in the wiring. Yay, because wiring can be a bear. Seriously, a bear. So, and at that point, I can go through and in an engine bay, I go ahead and disconnect, reconnect everything just to make sure something hasn't rattled loose. It's just part of maintenance. And then I went through and I checked the lights up above, and I had done this before just kind of generally, but now I'm like really after it. So I go up above, I do what I can up there, still nothing. And I'm like, well, crap. So my next thing is now I really need to get in and now I need to get in and YouTube University, and that's where I have to go in, and I need to find a voltage meter and a multimeter. And I wasn't quite sure what either one of those does. Like I know what the voltage meter does because you can check your electrical outlets and that sort of thing. The multimeter, now you're getting past what I'm comfortable with or even really want to know about. So, but, you know, I can probably figure this out. So I wander myself over to Home Depot, and Home Depot, I'm looking at this stuff, and it ranges from kind of cheap to really expensive, and fairly quickly. And I'm like, you know what? I'm only going to use this stuff like once, because this is it. So I'm thinking to myself, I know people that have this stuff. I'm going to see if maybe I can just borrow it. And so I make a couple of phone calls. A friend of mine makes a couple of phone calls as well. And lo and behold, dear friend has it. He's kind of a jack of all trades, does this, does that. He's got stuff. So, and he volunteers his time. Thank you. So he comes over and we kind of start getting into it. And I bring him up to speed on what I've been done. He goes back through the process, double checks things, because of course I'm like novice. He's further along, way further along than I am. Like, he will do electric stuff. I just don't like it. So we get up to speed. We're kind of about where I was. We have both deduced at that point that, yeah, we're going to have to go trace the wiring down, and more than likely may have to really get into it up on top of the 4Runner. And we're not liking that idea. And the reason we're not liking that idea, there's a bunch of connections that are above the driver's side, kind of tucked underneath the lights on the driver's side of the rig. These wires run through the Gobi, the tubing of the Gobi. And if there's a problem inside of that, you can just understand having to take the Gobi off of the 4Runner. Hopefully we don't have to go there. So as we're kind of sitting there, there's neighbors that walk by, and I've edited most of them out. As a matter of fact, all of them except for one. And he was so nice. He's out walking his dog, and he stops, and he's kind of asking, and he was kind of thought maybe we're doing mechanical work. And no, we're doing electrical work. And he happens to be an electrician. Yay! So excited. So, and he was happy to help out for a little bit until he needed to go take care of some family stuff. So he had a little window where he could kind of come over and help out. And of course, you kind of shoot the shit and that kind of stuff with your neighbor. And we did a lot of yik-yakking as we were kind of working on this project. I'm going to speed that up. I've edited a bunch of it out. It's just kind of running in the background so you can kind of see what was going on. And I've edited out the airplane noise because I don't know what was going on with the airplanes that day, but they were just constantly. So anywho, or I just drowned it out and I just don't realize how bad it actually is. It's not that bad, unless you're doing a video. And then everything becomes like, anywho, video stuff. It's wild. This is weird, honestly. But it's kind of fun. Anywho, let's see. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. Yep. Okay. To simplify what was going on here, because I couldn't get complicated with this if I tried. Basically, there are 4 wires that are coming off of that unit, and you can kind of see that. That far wire to the top of the screen, it's not connected to anything because there's not a 4th light. So 3 of the wires are hot. So we got 3 hots running to each of the lights, the bar and the 2 in the back. Okay. We know that those are working. We get to a point, so we're understanding it's a ground that we're chasing down. We do get to a point where part of the light bar, not the whole thing, but part of the light bar comes on. And boy, we were excited because we knew we were getting close. And it had to do with the little bundle that was up on top, tucked up underneath the light bar. And they had that strapped down really good. And there's, show you guys a picture of that. So we had gotten into that little jumble of wires and connections because there's connections right in there. And at first, we kind of thought maybe it was the light bar that was going bad, and maybe there was some way that was affecting the other lights, and then that wasn't making much sense, and we kept coming back to the idea that it had to be a ground wire. So those magic tools that the neighbor brought, because he's an electrician, they were better than the ones that my other friend, I'm not using names because they, you know, privacy, right? They're fine with being on here, but that we're good. So anywho, the neighbor brought his professional stuff with him. So he's going through them and checking, and really it was within the first few wires that we checked, he found what the culprit was. And thankfully, there wasn't more than one section that was an issue, which was another thing that we were keeping our fingers crossed that wasn't going to be an issue. It was just simply this one connection had gotten a little bit loose. And as a matter of fact, as soon as the tester was shoved into it, basically fixed it. So put the wires back together, off it went, and then everything worked again, which was awesome. Absolutely wonderful. And we got so lucky in being able to find that. And then, that's brilliant. Yeah, that was kind of it. Boy, that light bar came on. We even went through a little point where we had been checking the fuses in the engine bay and didn't put one of the fuses back exactly where it needed to go, and the car wouldn't start. So we had to go back through and figure out exactly where that needed to go. So if you take a fuse out, make sure you put it back exactly where you found it. So anywho, yeah, that was it. We got it up and running, and it's great. It's great. Excited. Happy about it. Yes. So more off-road adventures. Here we come. Let's go.